Without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Israel.
Thank you very much, Kushal, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody joining us today. It's a pleasure for me to be walking you through today about our Margin Bridge Analyzer solution. Before we get started, I wanted to cover the confidentiality disclaimer that we have. All the information is obviously proprietary. And I want to start thanking all participants, customers, pricers, partners out there that are actually making the time to join us today on this discussion. For all those that haven't been still exposed to Vendavo, just provide a high-level overview about our company. We as Vendavo, we provide best-in-class pricing and setting solutions on the B2B space. We embedded analytics in order to support commercial and pricing transformation. We support our customers, our prospects, by really leveraging and combining our deep expertise in the B2B industries, both for manufacturers as well as distributions. We have a very powerful and knowledgeable team of value consulting team that also help leading customers through their transformation efforts for commercial excellence. And obviously, we have been developing our product solution set for the last 25 years, again, focus on B2B, in order to make sure we can help organizations like yours to excel in growth and profitability on a sustainable way. Whether you are a pricer or you are a P&L owner, CEO, commercial owner, etc., we have a vast array of solutions in our platform that really cover all that spectrum between CRM and ERP. So if you are a pricer, this is the right time to elevate your pricing skills and your game when it comes to really making sure that you are able to deliver and have the tactical solutions at your disposal in order to achieve and deliver that outcome that your organizations are actually aiming for. And whether you are, in this case, a commercial owner, a financial owner, CEO, CFO, is really critical that you are able to really leverage the power of technology to ensure that in this crazy economy that we live in, you can ensure growth and profitable in implementation of your initiatives in a way that are actually going to be driving the optimal outcomes. So just as I wanted to get things started, basically, I just wanted to kind of bring to the table in the way that our behavior is shaped since we are kids. We are used to, let's say, conditioning and come up with the optimal set of, let's say, recommendations or tactics that are actually going to shape our behavior, since we are kids. And that's important to know because what we want to make sure here is that we're able to let's say leverage all our capabilities internally to make sure that when it comes to making decisions, we have actually the right mindset in place in order to make sure that we are always knowledgeable about the consequences of the decisions that we make, but also we make sure that we can really enhance that experience with the power of technology.
So I just wanted to real quick on that slide there. Who's who? Who's the kid? Who's the parent?
Yeah, so you feel that probably the kid might be the pricer that might get disappointed, but not being able to truly kind of leverage or deliver all the technology they have on the complex business setup that we currently have.
Or conversely, the pricer is the parent trying to get the rest of the team members to move forward with the pricing work that's been delivered. So I love that. That's a great thoughtful slide.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning, since we are kids, we are trying to make the best decisions that we have, and we're always exposed to consequences. And we as parents, we acknowledge and realize the power of conditioning and reward and punishment to drive the right behavior. But as we grow older and we live in the business world, we're always conflicted with how to balance, let's say, our instinct, our gut feel, with a more rational, fact-based approach in order that is going to obviously able to deliver the outcomes that we're expecting. So this is some of the things that we need to think about when we're actually in a business setting. How and where's the bias and where's actually driving our decisions? If we think, for instance, that we focus on the intuition or the instinct-based, obviously it's going to be easier to, let's say, appeal to that part of on our solution toolkit, right? Because it comes naturally. Typically, it doesn't need to be trained. It's readily available. It's quick. Typically, it's always going to be based on experience, but as we know, sometimes we tend to underestimate the consequences, right? Um, uh, if we think, for example, on the rational side, obviously this is going to be more a train approach where basically, again, we're learning from experience, but we're able to ponder more what are the consequences of making a decision versus the other one. One of the key aspects here is sometimes, we need to balance that action and inaction, doing something or not doing something, and weighing on those consequences. Sometimes it can be detrimental because we don't have, let's say, that level of agility to make the optimal decisions. So what we want to do is here acknowledge that it's not one versus the other one, is making sure that we're able to leverage instinct and gut feel, but also really being able to, let's say, validate with data that our decisions are not really coming from fear alone, right? And this is one of the quotes that I wanted to share with you from Forbes, which is basically nowadays data with the available technology that we have in our hands is the best antidote for business leaders against fear and panic. And what we want to do is making sure that we inform those decisions in a way that are actually going to lead us to best or better outcomes. Especially we think in the current situation that we have, we need to be able to make decisions quick, and we need to be able to assess the impact of those decisions and being able to then decompose where are the factors at play that ultimately drive those outcomes. So something important as well, you guys probably have all go through accounting classes or calculus classes. And the idea is that we have still a hard time really understanding what are the key elements that drive a situation, what are the factors that actually drive a potential outcome, right? So I think that if we look at this picture very easily, we all come to the conclusion that obviously the weight of this seagull hasn't bended this particular kind of fence that we see by the ocean. But still, we need to fight this inner bias that we have internally in order to make sure that we don't stop in the big picture. We need to be able to find out and really assess and get into the details to ultimately understand what caused what. And that's what I refer to, correlation is not the same as causation. And just a question that I want to pose out there is that, would you guys think equally if instead of a seagull would be an elephant, that it would be actually leaning in there? So in the end, as we know, the devil is in the details. So as business leaders, we know that decision-making is the most critical task that we have at hand. We need to be able to make decisions quick. We need to be able to really ponder all the elements that are actually at play. And we want to make sure is that we have a solution. We have that gut feeling that is validated with data. So quickly you are able to course correct and adjust as we see fit. If you think about Tom Fishburne, is one of my kind of favorite marketinists. Sometimes in the business setup, the easy questions are actually really hard to answer. And specifically, we think about the complex business construct. We don't know. I mean, sometimes we might have the smartest and more sophisticated business strategy, but in the end, we are not really able to answer whether those strategies actually were properly executed, and if so, what was ultimately the driving factor that made that a huge success versus an average success. So if we think about, as business leaders, we want to find out what is actually driving our business. Do you clearly understand what is driving change and profit over time? And if so, can you explain why changes are taking place? And if that's the case, are you able to really react and adjust in due time? And as we go deeper into this kind of analysis, we know that sometimes these changes are well understood from a high level point of view, but if we get into the details, sometimes we get lost into how complex all the different factors are at play. So if we think about price volume mix, this is what we refer to the perennial question. What was the reason for the change in revenue and margin? If we think a margin bridge is going to be able to allow you to decompose and truly understand the key elements that obviously had at play, and being able to isolate, if you think you're pricing, being able to really isolate, if that price increase was obviously or effectively executed, whether in turn customers committed to give you additional volumes or not, but this also allows you to really have better visibility into other dimensions that are actually at play. Think about cost changes, mix, etc. Once we get deeper into the analysis of the business, obviously things are not as simple or as kind of meets the eye. So we want to have the possibility of very quickly and in a sustainable way decompose how those factors are actually executed. And that's basically what a margin bridge is going to do. Again, if you are a pricer, a margin bridge is going to really allow you to isolate, decompose, and truly understand what is actually driving those changes from a revenue and margin point of view, and really being able to look at all the different elements that are at play on the gross to net waterfall. If you are a commercial owner, it will allow you actually to see how your business is performing by regions, by sales rate, by channel, by customer. If you are a CFO or financial owner or P&L owner, you probably want to be able to see what actually has changed between your budget or your forecast and the actual transactions that you have. And out of, let's say, that most sophisticated commercial strategy that we are developing now, think about being able to trade that, on invoice concessions versus off invoice concessions, think about a discount versus a rebate, really being able also to track and identify the benefits of those commercial policies in a way that is really going to allow you a deep dive, fully understand, and then turn those insights into actually actions. So that's actually really the power of a price volume mix analysis. Obviously, currently the only alternatives or options that customers actually have, companies actually have, is either they develop this analysis in-house, think about a sophisticated, very complex spreadsheet. This is something that it could be feasible, but it's obviously not scalable. It poses a huge security risk. It's also prone to human error, and obviously is not scalable in the long term. We know that Power BI and visualization solutions can, to a certain degree, build that price waterfall and being able to isolate and decompose some of those effects. But obviously, that's going to really require a lot of heavy configuration by the user, and typically the performance is going to be subpar. You need to be able to kind of go top down and being able to do that at a scale. And then the third option is obviously you can always hire management consulting company, which is typically going to be more expensive. You're actually outsourcing that knowledge and expertise, and then it is going to be not as flexible as your business user actually might require, because again, not all analyses are actually the same. So what we want to present here is that how at Vendavo we have solved this problem. We have, based on our experience and the research over the last 20 years, we have productized this best practice for price volume mix. We actually have a patent on it, and we're the exclusive provider in the marketplace that is going to really allow organizations to measure and monitor not only the business impact of their decisions, but also really being able to decompose and isolate the effects of all those factors at a scale. A margin bridge obviously is going to allow you to do, I think, in more level of detail and level of performance, provide an interactive drill table, meaning that the user, whether you are, for example, a CFO, you will be able to navigate the different business structures in terms of like sales organization, product hierarchy, channel, and being able to truly understand what is driving those changes, as well as assessing the impact. But also from a pricing user point of view, you will be able also to decompose and access the application at a more granular level in order to tailor different analysis. Again, it's not the same. You want to be able to evaluate, let's say, actual versus a budget, or you want to be able to really look at, discounts versus rebates versus promotions. So what we want to ensure here is that, again, here, based on the user, you are going to have best-in-class functionality in order to allow you to truly understand everything that is at play and decompose those factors, as I was saying.
Absolutely, Israel. And I would just chime in here with a couple of observations here. This is obviously a tremendously powerful tool for a business owner, for somebody that's responsible for a P&L, because you can look at each one of those waterfall elements effectively as a throat to choke. Somebody's in charge of pricing, somebody's in charge of cost, somebody's in charge of the different decomposition effects you might put into the mix as you define that according to your business and aligns up and down through your organization. But for pricers, this is a tremendously powerful way to isolate and showcase the work that you're doing around your pricing efforts, your effectiveness in pricing, your where you need help from different parts of organizations to be more effective in terms of actually deployment, closing those loop. So this is lets you set up what it ought to be, the scenario looking forward that you preserved last quarter, comparing it to the actual quarter's performance. You can look goals versus actuals. You can look at period to period to say, are we making improvements or getting worse over time? But it really, really isolates and makes the light shine on all the work that pricers are doing in terms of getting that strategy out, getting those tactics deployed to the rest of the organization, and closing that loop to say this is working or this is not. So this is extremely exciting piece of solution.
You're absolutely right. And being a pricer myself, honestly, I have to say that this is the most powerful solution a pricer, a commercial owner, a financial owner actually have to really be able to get almost in kind of in real time. What is the impact of the decisions that are confronted every single day? You don't have to wait for the month to close. You don't have to wait for the quarter to be done in order to really understand how your shift on commercial policies have an effect in order to capture that behavior. And if we go back to the very beginning, again, it really allows you to kind of really keep that inner bias at bay by truly understanding it's not a 3% concession. Lowest price doesn't always win. You want to be able to ensure from a compliance perspective that, again, within the organization, policies are actually followed, are enforced, and if they are not, you're able to course correct. And if you think about, for example, in my experience, I would spend a lot of time really understanding how the customer profile shift based on behavior, how they buy, would actually affect our next contract renegotiation. So I think that this is very actionable, actionable, actually the most actionable insights that you could get out of any sort of visualization or analytical solution.
Absolutely. Price volume mix is a very simple idea. The actual implementation is really complex in terms of making it work repeatably, of that reliability, sustainability idea that you brought up before. But MBA makes that simple again because you set it up and it is repeatable and comparable. So let's look at the software.
Okay, good. Yeah, so basically what I'm going to walk you through right now very quickly is an overview of our solution, Margin Bridge Analyzer. I will cover three basic use cases, which is going to be, again, if you are a pricer or you're actually consuming that information, what is the user experience going to look like? You will see that it's very easy to navigate, drill down, and actually really get into the bottom of things. And then I will finish the demonstration on how a super pricing user, sometimes we call them super user, but in this case, it's actually much simpler than that. You are going to be able to really tweak and define your analysis to, again, being able to build those playbooks that then obviously are going to be shared with a broader audience. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now go into the application, Vendavo Margin Bridge Analyzer, and you will see basically we're going to have two differentiated tabs here. The first one, analysis, that's going to be, let's say, for somebody consuming this information, is already an analysis that has been built already. And in this case, what I have actually done is very easily, I have configured a margin bridge that is really going to look at, for instance, how margin has changed between two periods. And in the way that we actually utilize the information is going to be really looking into your actual transactions. So basically, what you're going to have is we're going to look at your transactions. We're going to be looking at loading them into our cloud-based application. And then what we're going to be doing is doing some transformation and aggregation work in order to define what the business model is going to look like. And then the power user will be able to create an analysis template. And that's basically going to really define how that waterfall is configured, but also what is going to be the navigation and the drilling path that a user is actually going to have. And then if you have the standard users you will see how you can really analyze and go through the margin bridge to be able to review and deep dive into the areas of business that actually are actually relevant to explain those changes. So if I go back again to the application, again, very easily, you will see that we're going to be looking at the transactions that you are actually analyzing. We're going to then really look at a basic, in this case, going to be a margin bridge exercise. And what we have enabled here is going to be really being able to drill down, let's say with a guided path, let's say by region. So in this case, I want to be able to understand why, for example, in Europe, we have a negative margin impact on those 2 quarters based on how we actually have operated the business. So very quickly, we will have the possibility of, again, drill down through that sales hierarchy. Again, we'll be able to identify here that, France and Germany have actually a different behavior from a margin perspective than other countries. And then we are able to, again, enable the possibility of drilling down using additional characteristics. In this case, I actually bring in, let's say, channel. I want to be able to see if my commercial policies that go through direct sales are behaving differently than in indirect sales. So very easily, you will be able to, again, understand how, in this case, the different businesses actually performance. You will see that the application is actually fully featured, which means that, again, it will have the possibility for the user to really filter and understand, if you want, for instance, compare customers. And all the application, as I was mentioning, is going to be fully configurable from the UI, for the user interface. But let's assume, for instance, that now we want to, let's say, tweak or fine tune our model. I will show you how easily we can go into, I'm going to discard these changes, and I'm going to show you how very easily we can go and modify that particular template. So now I'm not a CFO or I'm not a commercial owner. I'm going to be the pricing user that actually define the template. And you will see also that within the application, we're going to have the high-level overview of how the model is actually set up. In this case, at the very top, you will see what qualifies revenue, what qualifies margin, as well as the different dimensions that I'm actually bringing into my analysis. It might be that in this case, I want to be able to incorporate other dimension like product. So very easily through the navigation, I'm able actually to modify that, as well as within the model itself, you will see also that I'm able to also bring other elements, right? Before I was showing price as a single factor, it might be that I want to be able to decompose price increase or price versus price decrease. Price could be the combination of list price changes or discount changes or promotions or rebates, and the user will be able to really modify this construct, this setup within the user interface, as well as also being able to define additional mix. So it might be that now I want to have a product mix on top of the initial model that I actually have created. So now that I have, let me minimize here, I'm going to apply those changes. And then you will see how fast the application is in order to account for the particular changes that I actually did. So if I open my new margin bridge, basically what I'm going to do is go through the whole transactional data set, and I'm actually going to run the model and being able to decompose how those different factors are at play. And then I will have a much better visibility into, for example, what was the net impact of those price increases or price decreases, as well as being able to also incorporate other elements that in this case are critical for me to understand in terms of where the business grew and where I lost the business based on those initial commercial policies that I actually set. So what I show you is how quickly a pricing user, or actually a CFO, a finance owner, a commercial owner, can go through the application to really assess and identify how price volume mix changes actually have affected the performance of the business, how then we can drill down at the scale to the different business structures through purposely build analysis, as well as from a power user, how we can easily tweak and modify the model in order to make sure that those actually become a playbook for pricing excellence and commercial excellence. And just to wrap up, again, a margin bridge can answer many, many different questions. Based on how flexible the application is, we can configure it to tackle many different use cases. I was talking before about compliance. Again, compliance could be implementation of surcharges nowadays, or effectively tracking how price increases are actually being received by the customers, or how your commercial teams are actually following the guidance and the mandate to execute on those price changes. So hugely actionable, very effective, very flexible, and easy to use. And that's basically one of the feedback that one of our large customers in Europe actually implemented this solution 4 months ago. And basically they acknowledge that this has been a hugely successful because now they have the whole organization in one single platform. They refer to it as their global Bible to truly understand business analysis. And obviously they are kind of reaping huge benefits from being able to, again, decompose and obviously adjust pricing strategies in a sustainable way. So this is basically what Vendavo brings to the table. We make price volume mix analysis very easy, very actionable, scalable. It's easy to implement. I think that having basic business structure like your transactions, we can stand up this application in a matter of days if needed. And obviously you're going to have, again, best practices implemented for actionable insights and delivering outcomes to your organization. So I'm going to pause now and see if we have any questions from the field.
Absolutely. And Israel, I think of my time when I had a P&L, when I had a product line. I think of month end close, and I think of my CEO storming down the hallway, and I knew what he was going to ask. He's going to ask, what the hell happened? And we were cobbling together explanations that just depended on the reporting. Oh, we pulled this report this time, but somebody else pulled another report another time. This MBA capability of standardizing how people view things, everybody agrees, they nod the head, they look each other in the eyes, they nod their head, yes, that's the basis for evaluating it. And from that point on, the actions, the consequences that you mentioned at the beginning are exactly understood. Who owns them, who owns the actions to correct those things, or the congratulations for making effective changes is extremely clear. So I love this product. It is literally the easy button for the pricing folks, for the pricing team to prove their worth. And it's the easy button for a business owner, for a P&L owner to say, what do I need to do? What's working and what's not working? So let's handle a couple of questions here. First off, and this is a great question, is the Margin Bridge Analyzer module separate from Profit Analyzer?
Okay, good question. So yes, it's a separate module, obviously, because we acknowledge that not all the organizations actually have gone through the process of, let's say, build price waterfall or being able to have actually a system in play. The reason why also is a different solution is because it's fully featured, as I was mentioning. We have what we call flexible causality that is really going to allow, again, loading that information into the cloud. So this is a SaaS-based product. And because we already have best practice and some model definitions already implemented in the cloud, is going to be much faster. So you don't have to wait, let's say, to have a very sophisticated price waterfall in play. This is as easy as having revenue, margin, units, customer, and product hierarchy in place, and you're able actually to implement it, as I was mentioning, in as little as 24 hours.
Excellent. Here is the next question. How can I simplify the results MBA has given me to distribute to the rest of my business? I think you kind of leaned into that. Expand that a little bit more, please.
Yeah, so I would say that because the solution is highly configurable, basically every single analysis or template, as I was referring to before, actually becomes a playbook that organizations actually can share, socialize. So the whole organization is actually speaking one single source of truth, because the information is easily shareable. Again, based on how that analysis has been designed, basically you can have everybody on board really acknowledging how those insights really need to turn into policy changes. So I think that would be one of the key, benefits of having a cloud-based application that, again, without having to go through very sophisticated data pools, it's just a matter of making sure that the whole organization have end-to-end visibility into what is actually driving outcomes and actually how effective shifting policy changes actually end up impacting the bottom line.
Excellent. This is a great question. What are some of the challenges that companies that you've worked with, what have they faced to make something like MBA not just functional, but effective going forward? What are the things that they've looked at to make that really part of their process?
Yeah, I would say that obviously having the ability of kind of analyzing with almost like surgical precision the effectiveness of policy changes, pricing, commercial terms, etc. That's one of the key areas that our customers are kind of really looking into this application. Obviously, that has a significant impact or dependency on change management, because, for instance, we see that a lot of companies want to invest on AI and come up with price recommendations and target guidance. But ultimately, I think that the more successful approach here or angle would be is not about having high precision to deliver specific pricing to your customers. It's also really being able to track and truly understand how successful organizations are, understanding what works and actually what doesn't work. So I think that this really couples and complement other functional areas that companies are already investing on, like price management or price optimization. But I think that in this case, the key objective and the quick wins and the long-hanging fruit is really being able to easily diagnose what works and what doesn't, and then being able to course correct and deliver those changes effectively with agility and a lot of flexibility.
Excellent. And one more question here. We'll stretch this just a little bit for one more question here. Can the solution be configured? I think what they're asking, can this go down to a quote basis, or is this more at a product family or business unit? How granular is this, or is there another way to evaluate actual costs versus estimated cost up front?
Really good question. Yeah, you can incorporate and leverage different data sources into the application. And by data sources, it could be, again, deal information. If you have the possibility of tying deal information with actual transactions, you can for sure then track and compare and really see what is actually creating that deviation in terms of, again, revenue and margin. From a granular point of view, you can go all the way down to the transaction. I mean, if you do that transformation work from a data point of view and being able to, again, sync up different data sets, you obviously can do at any granular level, both from a customer, from a product, from a sales organization, and really being able to decompose and effectively really track how those factors get allocated, as I was mentioning, to a transaction. We have customers, for instance, that they want to understand everything that goes from, let's say, reference price all the way to customer net price, and really analyze what is the difference on all the different elements on the price waterfall. And they do that at the transactional level. So obviously you want to enforce and track compliance, you will be able to see indeed, if the customer end up buying less or buying different products, and how ultimately that change actually led to let's say, a gap between the expected volume, the expected profitability of that deal, and the actual profitability.
Absolutely. And again, to recap, a couple of other questions coming in here. Yes, MBA is a new module. It absolutely is leveraging the 20 years of experience around causality that we've had in our analytics package, but it amplifies that with that extensibility, with that flexibility, with that configurability, which makes it easy for an organization to have a harmonized view of how to build out those buckets, but then within that, it lets everybody dig around and drill to their heart's content at a very high level, if that's what the CFO looks at, but drilling down as deep as they need to, or starting at a product line, starting at a business unit level that is then rolled up on the same basis on a reporting basis. So really great alignment opportunity here. With that, I think we've run just a little bit over. I would want to say thank you, Israel, for pulling all this together. Kushal, thanks for the setup and coordinating this for everyone. I hope everyone enjoys their coffee. Israel's email is up there. If you want to reach out to him directly, feel free to do that, or reach out to anybody on the Vendavo team. And I really thank everyone for joining us. Looking forward to talking to you more about this, about how we can help you make the complex simple and make growth and profitability something that you can deliver for your organization. With that, thanks, Israel. Thanks, Kushal.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, everybody.